Alright, welcome to my Let's Play review of Diablo 2. Now, before we get started, I want you guys to know that I've played Diablo 2 for quite a number of years, and in my time with the game, I find it to be one of the best games I had ever played. Um, Nothing that kind of highlights a gaming experience like it. However, after playing newer games, I find that perhaps my nostalgia
Hi
goggles
there.
maybe
What you need?
were calculating this game to be much better than what it actually was. And I realized I don't think I've ever really played the game the way it was meant to be played. So I do want to kind of highlight that because, excuse me, this game
I
doesn't play as well as I remember it. And the challenge of the game definitely was much higher than I recall as a kid. Now, with that being said, we're gonna, this is a Nightmare playthrough, so we're gonna do kind of a little bit of playthrough of the Nightmare difficulty and see how much harder it is while we talk about graphics. So graphically, Diablo 2 is definitely a vast improvement from Diablo 1. I like the animations that they did, and I think that the characters are well drawn. Um, there is a way to zoom in, and I always forget what the button is for that. Uh, somewhere, somewhere in this mess is a zoom in feature. Uh, I can't figure it out right now, but there's a way to zoom in. Um, one of the things about the video options actually is that they had a perspective mode. I don't really like perspective mode too much. I feel like it adds a weird flow to the camera. However, I think it's supposed to simulate like a more like a 3D look, similar to like what we get with Diablo 3. However, like Diablo 1, this is more of a 2D game with a 3D looking environment. Um, so, in terms of graphics, everything looks really nice. Definitely upgraded from Diablo 1. Lighting is good. Animation quality is good. And we're going to go do some fighting here to kind of show off a little bit of some of the spells. Oh, I should probably put on Bone Spear. And so,
All who oppose me, beware.
the game was simplistic in its presentation. Wow, Bone Spear is a really loud spell. The game is simplistic in its presentation, but kind of still captures the same essence I think Diablo 1 did with graphics. Visually, it's an appealing game, and it kind of does give you like a creepy sense. There's weather, which for this day and age is quite nice, though, as you can see with the raindrops, it's kind of like a filter. It's not like true weather. There's no
Good
interactions
day.
with the environment and the weather, so there's nothing that you're looking at that's like, oh, this is really cool because
Good day.
it's raining and everything is wet. Not really. It's just for the sake of having weather. You can see the water animations are pretty basic, but the game still looks nice. Fire animations are nice. Enemy animations, distractions are pretty cool. And deaths are pretty nice and different. As you can see, this zombie got cut in half. This one kind of just lost his legs. But they don't all die the same. It's not how it was in Diablo 1, where enemies pretty much died the same and had the same look to them. So, graphically, I'd say the game is average for the time. Nothing like phenomenal, but definitely captured like the graphic essence of the game, which the original game had, and makes this game feel more dark because of the style, not because it's just made to be dark, which we'll talk a little bit about when we get to the third review. of the Diablo series, which would be Diablo 3. Uh, this game feels dark, feels gothic. I want to go to the Den of Evil to kind of highlight darkness about the game. So we're going to run over there real quick. But the game does have a nice palette. Now, the map actually is interesting because I find that in this game, it's more useful to have the map than in the last game. And another reason I think that they did that differently is because the map is randomly generated levels, so the importance of having a good graphical map is needed for this game, and I find that it does a pretty good job of highlighting what's important, the pathways, some shrine locations and things like that. Now, for those many, I'm sure, paid Diablo in its heyday, most people use the map pack. The map pack unlocked the whole map so you could see everything, similar to how future games, Diablo 3 did it, and other games of like, where you can kind of see the whole map and you don't have to kind of unlock the map as much. So rather than it going around and trying to like see where everything is, you kind of had an idea at a greater range. So like you see, like I just saw the den right here, and I was here and I couldn't see the den. Range was definitely expanded in future games. So there is that. So the darkness factor,
I sense
the darkness
within this place.
I think was very well done. You could still see things, but it does capture like the creepy, spooky sense really well, I think, because you're kind of just going around and it's sometimes just dark enough in some places, and especially in Migdalena Act 2 where you have the eternal darkness. You really get to see like how the darkness kind of plays into seeing characters and stuff. Doesn't mean you can't see them. And again, most people use map pack, which kind of tells you a feature that the game needed that wasn't really in the base game. So the darkness and again, like how everything looks. We're going to switch back to non-perspective mode, so you can see kind of the perspective mode kind of makes the environment move around you, stretched, but graphically, I find it's more appealing to me move around the environment. So I think that overall, graphically, the game for its time, like 7 out of 10. It's not like the prettiest game I've ever seen. And again, even with the nostalgia goggles, for what it is, and looking back at it now that I'm 30 versus when I was 12, 13 playing this game, you can see where, you know, some of the pixelation here, like if you're looking at this, the zombie and like you can see the rough edges. And the game doesn't really have a lot of graphical settings to kind of enhance that. You get what you get. They have blended shadows. I didn't even have that on, and it just, I guess, makes the shadows look slightly more realistic? Maybe? Or maybe because the character shadows like stack now? I'm not really sure. Say what that feature does. But that's pretty much all the graphical settings. You really have too much in terms of what to do in this game graphically. Now, music. I will say the music in this game is pretty good. Some of the side tracks are actually reused from the first game. Certain dungeons, the old Tristram track. There's a lot of remix stuff, but it's very surprising. You actually, I didn't really recall there were so many tracks reused, but there was a couple of them. I believe the Catacombs track was reused from the original. But overall, the soundtrack was unique, and I think it captured each place pretty well. All of them are memorable. Could be because I played the game a lot. Could be that they're just memorable, but I find that games with music like Diablo, we're going to actually turn off Bone Spirit entirely, because it's like, oh wait, did it turn off my music? Oh wow, look at that. So, I find that games like Diablo don't typically have a memorable soundtrack. primarily like the Tristram theme of Diablo 1 is like the most memorable, and for me, like when you get to the caves, that's a really good soundtrack as well. Though all the soundtracks in Diablo 1 are like like I know exactly where I am and what's going to happen next, and um, it just has that feel to it. Um, Diablo 2 kind of has that as well with the music, um, but what I do like about the music more in Diablo 1 than Diablo 2, which I wish they would have done more. It's not as creepy. Diablo 1 music felt very creepy, and maybe that's partly because you're kind of on this adventure again. But Diablo 2's music didn't feel as creepy as Diablo 1. A lot of high points, and really in Diablo 1, you only had high points when you went to town. Everything outside of town was creepy music. Some kind of eerie message being sent kind of music, and this is not the case for Diablo 2, where you kind of have this relatively like actiony, creepy music, but then you have parts where you're like walking around and the music is like not creepy. Lukulin and Karas are like two examples where it's like they're not creepy, it's just adventure-y. So music is good, but definitely not as scare-provoking as the original game was. So music, I'd say 6 out of 10. It's good. It just, for what Diablo for me was supposed to be and what they were trying to go for, I did not find that they captured the creepy essence of Diablo game in Diablo 2, which, as much as I love this game, it was not there for me. So we're going to move on to cinematics. Cinematics in this game actually I think are really good for the time, and it was an interesting take. I think that they decided to use a character to tell the story that is not your character, actually. The whole story is told pretty much through Marius um, and his following of Dark Wanderer. Um, and I think that's an interesting way to tell the story because it kind of gives you like the every normal person's version of what could be going on through their experience as opposed to like the hero's experience. Um, and you don't see it in my, unfortunately, my Diablo 1 playthrough because I did the browser version, so the browser version has some limitations in terms of things that you can see and whatnot. But um, even the cinematics in Diablo 1, you have the one that kind of just highlights the coming of the demons, and
Is that
then
enough to earn the
you have the
rogue's
one where you
trust?
go into Lazarus, and then you have the Diablo ending one where the hero takes the soul stone and puts it in his skull, which is not the smartest idea, but you know, that's their plot device. So, excuse me. So yeah, so that's I think kind of it highlights those aspects, but it also kind of shows you a little bit about how this game
Hello.
they wanted to kind of tell the story in another way, another fashion, and I think it does a good job of telling the story in the other fashion. Um,
Hello. My
so ultimately, I'd say cinematics are good. I like there's a bunch of them. Each act has their own, and they connect and kind of explain why you're going to the next place in a more clear way, but are visually pleasing and for the time. I mean, it's exciting to see kind of like Diablo and Mephisto and them in 3D and materials, epic wings when you get to Act 5. So cinematics good. 8 out of 10. Story. I liked this game, and I liked the first story, simplistic telling of of I believe it's Leoric's son, coming to find out what happened to his father, and discovering Diablo and having to go down into the depths to kill Diablo. Um, so we kind of start where in this I feel like you're on an adventure before the story really the Diablo story really kicks in. Um, and I think that all the characters in Act 1 and their dialogues are great. And I strictly say this for Act 1 because each act I find, especially Kane, so the dialogues start and it seems like really strong. uh, Everybody kind of has their own opinions of things, and Warriv probably is one of my favorite characters in this game for storytelling and his opinion and adventuring. And but Kasha, Akira, Charcy, Geed, and Kane, all very good at Act 1.
Not in town.
And then as you get to the other acts, there's a couple of good expositions in Act 2 with the potion guy and Jaren. But once you get to Act 3, what I noticed about, especially Kane's dialogue, where he kind of goes on this adventure, he kind of, for someone who's supposed to be like this wise Roderick, person, his storytelling falls a little bit weaker for me. I try to do gossip as much as possible and kind of like highlight different pieces of what was going on, and I found that Kane's character, she's the identify guy. I mean, he doesn't really. I find that he could be more, but he doesn't give more in his sharings, which I think they did a lot better in 3. But his knowledge for such a wise old man, um, and the last of his people, his religion, they don't do a really good job of storytelling there. The quests, most of the quests don't really have any rhyme or reason except to be here as a quest and serve for some kind of upgrade. Most of them anyway. Um, and even some of them, like Charcy's upgrade thing, kind of is useless in the end game. The only ones that really matter are like the soccer quest, the skill quest, the stat quests. But they're not. They're not very connected. They don't seem to have a good reason for existing. They're not telling a real good story plot device. The whole Jade figurine thing, I've done the quest a million times and never really like listened to it. And when I listened to the dialogue, I was kind of like, okay, I guess it's okay. And then like, the potion guy, he goes to give you the potions from the ashes, and it's all like in a matter of seconds. Oh, go away, come back. But then you're like, okay, I'm just gonna talk to you, walk away, come back, and a lot of the storytelling I felt for this what would be the side quest essentially um, fall flat. And why I say this, so in the way that most people have played Diablo 2, you pretty much make a character and get power level to the high levels to try a build out. And so you do Den of Evil, you do Stony Field, save Kane. If you want to get the runes, you go to Black Marsh and expansion. Otherwise, you go straight to Ondario. That's the whole act. And then Act 2, same thing. You do the bare minimum quest, and there's no real good reason to like experience the other quest stories. There's nothing unique about them. You just get what you do Radamus Layer to kind of get the skill point, but like you know everything that's kind of happening is aftermath. So like you're just kind of like, oh, this is happening. It's just there's such a limited amount of quests. There's only 6 per act, except for Act 4. Um, very repeated. There's nothing great about their storytelling. Nothing really memorable about it. I did the Nilathak quest for Act 5, and I have to say, pointless. Absolutely useless quest, useless reward. I get what they were trying to build up a character, and like his ominous, like, ooh, this necromancer, he's like super negative, and maybe he's like not doing the right thing, but like you literally don't have to do that quest to progress to the game, even though they're trying to make it a quest that you're supposed to do for the game. So some of the storytelling in this game could have been better, um, but overall I'd say it was average. It's like a 6 out of 10. I mean, it wasn't phenomenal. It wasn't like some kind of wow, I'm blown away by the story by any stretch. And I don't think any of these games really are, but I found Diablo 1 and the characters' tellings and kind of knowing the town was better. And I think it's because you had one place to go and kind of meet a bunch of people and talk to them, as opposed to Diablo 2. You have so many places, and so I feel like you could see that the work was put a lot in Act 1 and Act 2 more ish, and then by the Act 3 and Act 4, like Jamela and her brother don't even talk. I thought they had dialogues. They didn't even have dialogues. And I thought, Wow, that's disappointing. So the only people you could talk to in Act 3 are Cain, Tyrael, and Azul when you kill him, and Diablo when he says not death can save you from me, which, yeah, right. But there's, you could see how, like, as the game progressed, things were slowly kind of diminishing. So there's that with the story. Overall content, so there is a ton of stuff to do in this game. Um, so even though the story falls a little bit flatter there, so okay, so caveat, there's a ton of stuff to do in the expansion. In the expansion, you have charms and you have rune words. And I just realized I'm wearing the wrong weapon. You have charms, you have rune words, okay, and newer legendaries and whatnot. So the cube, first of all, is basically a stash. This is what its purpose is for. Um, items are pretty set, and I kept this armor for this reason. Um, when you're looking at gear, the armor, 88, same durability, same strength, same level requirement, same everything, okay? When you get set items, when you get most uniques,
Good evening.
they are pretty set with the exception of maybe one stat that alternates. And then rune words is where you had greater variety, which the purpose of the variety I find was to kind of just extend the life of the game. So I made a lore, and lore I think is one of those rune words you don't really have too much variety, but something like Enigma or Heart of the Oak where you can get a variety of skill points. The idea is you make the rune word and then you're like, oh man, I need to make another rune word. And I don't remember if there was a recipe to take out runes from things. So like, this is done. You can't do anything with this, right? So the exciting thing is you play the game to farm and you try to find these runes and like like Zod is like the rarest rune in the game versus like Tau rune where you're gonna find a bunch of them or F runes. You go on this hunt. It was exciting that they kept adding new rune words for a period of time, and like it gave you different ways to build your character. But it was a different level of power creep, we'll say, because level 100 is the cap level. I am level 31. I've never gotten to level 100 in this game. I've only gotten to level 92, I think, is on my online necromancer, which I don't even have anymore. I can't remember the login, but and he's decked out charms and stuff. But the power creep of this game was definitely in the rune words, where you kind of you found the best rune word, and then you kind of wanted to get the best version of that rune word. And if you were trading or online, when you were online, if you were trading, you pretty much had to trade for the best. It was very, very difficult to get lucky to get the best version of something the first time. And since the drop rate for excuse me, since the drop rate for high level runes is so rare, I mean better you have a better chance of getting to level 99 or 100 before ever getting a complete rune word. Now offline, I found out actually with the cube in offline mode only, you can actually upgrade runes to Zod. You cannot do this online. They limit to how far. I think you can go past Soul or up to Soul. I forget, but you can't upgrade past a certain point. So part of the challenge there was online you were limited. So again, this is where the power leveling happened. This is where a lot of scamming happened. People would go around and steal from one another, do the trade trick with, oh, I have this ring, look at this, look, it's my SOJ, and then like quick swap something else and then hit the trade button. If you weren't paying attention, you trade, or the people who duped items and you think you're getting SOJ and it's a blue ring. So there's a lot of that because, and I think, between the websites and the scamming, it kind of shows Blizzard didn't really get it right with itemization per se in this game. They got things that were cool that made it unique and fun because you could play a character, but then and I wish I could show you guys, but so like Necromancer, right? You have their skill tree, which I'm going to cover in a second, but you have your limited skills here. But Poison Nova. You could play a Paladin, get an item that has Poison Nova on it, and then be a Poison Nova Zealden. Or I could be a Necromancer and have Barbarian Shouts to kind of buff up my character's health and resistances and skills. And that was awesome. Like, you could use the skills of another class, um, certain skills of another class, and it was cool. The game is very heavily skill based with the skill tree, right? So everything maxes to 20. You can't max everything. You have now they added this in a later. I should caveat this. They added this in a later update, restatting. This was not here for the longest time. You only get 3 per character, each difficulty. So I got my Nightmare one now. I have my normal one. I've got my Hell one if I do Hell mode. I probably won't. But this is not here. You had Talk Trade, cancel. You didn't get a car's skill reset until it was after 1.08. So for the longest, you built a character, and let's say I was like, oh, I'm going to be a Bone Mancer. So I build my Bone Mancer, and I get my skills, and if I messed up somehow for some reason, that's it. You were committed. If I decided, oh, you know what, I really didn't want to do Summer Resistant Dolomat, well, too bad. 2 skill points down. Now, for my build, of course, you'd have to max 20, 40, 60, 80, 100, 20. You cannot max 120. You don't get 120 skill points in the game, so you capitalize. Where do you want to put the skill points, right? So you usually max these 5 right here. You put some in here, and then for defense, you get some there, and amplify damage, or if you want, you go down for decrepify, because it's quite useful for slowing enemies. But there's really no good way. I've had some people say lower resist takes off the immunities. I've never really seen it happen. But there's no good way to, without the follower wearing a certain gear, there's no good way to lower the resistances or remove immunities. So that's how you build the character. Want to build a new character? Let's say I want to be a Bone Mancer, Summoner, make a new Necromancer. Dash space wasn't shared at this time, so to get the gear from this character to move, or you needed a good friend, family member who you trusted, or you opened random games, you ran to the corner of some random map and prayed that someone didn't join the game in that time that you were there, with map hack, see that you were in this weird corner, like, what are you doing all over here? Why are you just standing over here? Dropping items and didn't steal your stuff. Or worse, you make a game that's like a bail run. You go let people do the bail run, and either A, they finish it before you get back in, or B, you can't get back into the game, and now you gotta wait until the bail run is done and pray that you get in before the game closes, and you don't lose all your items. So, or that they don't spend hours dueling. So, content, while there's a lot of stuff, not really good ways to transfer between characters, so they kind of almost were trying to force you to kind of like start a new character and like play the whole character again. And in offline mode, this pretty much is what you had to do. So you committed to a build, and you stayed with that build because there was really no way you were going to change. Charms, another way. So adding charms added new ways to kind of stat up your character. As you can see, I have 3330, which is partly because of the charms I'm wearing and partly because of the gear I'm wearing. Now, from when I looked at builds, and I never looked at builds as a kid, but looks like pretty much everything should be put into Vitality because you just need health. Unless you're a sorceress, in which case you get energy because you need mana for Mana Shield and spellcasting. So you pretty much live in one stat, and you only get what you need in the other stats. And so I kind of understand now when I come back to this why Diablo 2 did what they, Diablo 3 did what they did with the statting, because it kind of highlights the pointlessness of statting. Like, oh, I'm going to be so unique and stat the way I want to. But not really. You only stat up what you absolutely need, and then you pump everything into one stat anyway. And Paragon Points really highlighted that. So, like, stat allocation for this game specifically, and in the first game, their purpose, more so in the first game, there was more of a reason to kind of, like, get variety. This game, literally, you could see it. I pumped everything into Vitality except for a couple of things here and there. Literally had no reason to put into anything else. And the big thing, like, stamina, right? So you have this walk thing, which is the dumbest thing they ever added. Love that they added running, hated that you had stamina and it was obnoxious, and endgame is much better because you have a bunch of stamina from the vitality and gear and stuff, but like, oh my god, worst thing ever is a stamina bar. Like, realism, the challenge, the fear of like, oh my god, I'm running away. No, no, horrible. So, yeah, they stat allocation, it doesn't really serve a purpose, honestly. I mean, in a melee build, you would have a chance to hit and stuff, but even still, like, there's really, hold on, let me switch to melee so you can see. There's really like no, you get you get the dexterity you need, or you get the strength you need, and then you pump what, like, usually you would pump dexterity for like melee characters a little bit more, but then even still, you really need vitality. So it's more pigeonholed than you realize. When you first play the game, you're like, oh, whatever. But like as an experienced player, like I already knew, like, I'm dying, I need vitality. I'm dying, I need vitality. And like, was I finding gear? No. And that's the other thing about this game. Gear drop rates are atrocious. The fact that I got this wand and this offhand is like something out of a miracle. Because I really was like struggling for a good part of the Let's Play. I had the shield for a long time for the resistances. And I had like I got a crappy ring. Like this ring I think I got after the Den of Evil, and I never changed it. Because it's like, itemization is like so random. And then you hope for the good charms, and like I save these charms. And understand I save like these fire lightning damage charms. They don't do anything for my build. This doesn't do anything for my build. Um, the resistances do. The stats I keep because you need to have stats, and if I had more stat space or cube space, I would put them somewhere else, but just kept them with me. I pretty much lived on potions, as you could see through the playthrough if you watched the whole thing. And, so the two things about itemization here, it's nice because you can get, and like the Wand of Iroh, fire damage. Really? If you're a melee mancer, you're using a dagger. If you're not a melee mancer, you're using spells. Fire damage does not get added to spells. Doesn't. Does not. That gets added here. Does not get added here. You know why? Because my spell, 142 to 165, 142 to 165. There is no fire damage there. Nothing. Doesn't do that. So some of the stats on like legendary items for the class specific, useless. Light radius, that's good. Render generation, that's excellent. Life stolen per hit. Why am I going to be using melee with a wand? It just doesn't make sense. So, and like, to understand, like, I say this not because I'm trying to be, but like, I'm doing 142 to 165 with Bone Spear. I do 10 to 26 with the wand. There's never a time where I'm going to need to wand someone to death. Even if I was a summoner, I would still be using some kind of spell to weaken with my summon until I can build some skeletons up. So like, sets, unfortunately I didn't get any. Usually I get like Saigons or something. I didn't get anything. So I can't even show you like how sets work, unfortunately, but again, similar to like in Diablo 3, sets work and you get multiple pieces, you get access to multiple parts of the bonus. What sucks is you can't see. I think there was another hack for the game that you could, but you can't see what the bonuses are until you get the set. So sets were exciting and disappointing. Pretty much you lived on Ariat Summit if you knew better, to see what, like, oh, I got Cathan set. What's max set do? And you'd look it up. But if you didn't, then you kind of were like, ooh, I gotta save it. And then again, back to stat space, you're like, where do I save this? I don't even know if this is worth me keeping for my class. So, yeah. And there's actually a weapon in this set, so you literally wouldn't even get the full set bonus. But, so, that's the whole thing with itemization. I give it a 7 out of 10, mostly because the rune words were a fun aspect of the game that was added in the expansion. I have to say, in Diablo Cold or Diablo Vanilla, they don't have any of that stuff. So you're really at the mercy of just legendaries. So if I didn't have lore, I still could have beat the game. It would have been slightly harder. Everything else pretty much... Actually, I don't even know if these were in the game. This is definitely in the game. All the other stuff's in the game. I probably wouldn't have gotten the opportunity to make lore. I got really lucky to get a soul rune to build that, so yeah. The only thing with content, PvP, you collected ears when you killed people, um, if you really wanted to. I don't know anybody that really cared to collect the ears. They didn't do anything. You couldn't sell them for anything. They would just say you killed somebody. I never met one person who was
Can't
like
do that here.
an ear collector, so. But it was there. That's what the whole PvP. But basically you just went outside, went hostile with somebody, which the hostile button was somewhere down here. And then you would go run around and use your spells and your character. And if you didn't have a Enigma, you were pretty much screwed half the time. Unless you were a Fist of the Heavens paladin, you could like smite people from a long, far distance. One of the things I will say though with skills, they did a good job I think of making across all classes skills that can make pretty unique builds. Though end game wise, there was really very few builds that were actually successful. Like as a paladin, you couldn't play Spider in. Corpse Explosion is the best Necromancer build, followed by Poison Over, followed by Bone. Unfortunately, I love the Bone Mancer, so that's why I picked it. Curses were always support. You could do a Summoner build, but it was very gear dependent, and if you didn't have the gear to pump up all these summons, and you only could pick one Golem, you can never do a Golem build. And Iron Golem, terrible, 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 worst spell. Especially because it doesn't stay with you when you leave the game. You can make a great weapon out of an Iron Golem. He's badass for a little bit. He's dead. Weapon's gone. It's just not smart. So, some stuff was unforgiving in this game. You learn that the hard way, especially for a Necromancer. I would have hated my life. I've been like, oh, I need to make this, and let me see. Oh, I've got a legendary sword here. Bloop. And then like, oh, it's gone. Controls, pretty simple. Other thing I didn't like, I'm a scroller. I don't like pressing F1 through 3, 4 to do my skill switches. So I'm a scroller, but this is back in the age where potions were on your hotbar, not skills. So it is what it is. Prefer having a skill hotbar. Every game ever after Diablo era is like a skill hotbar since like World of Warcraft. So skill hotbar would have been better. But left click moves, R stops you from running, right click casts, shift click casts. Basically the same thing as Diablo 1. Nothing much to say there. And finally, with the overall gameplay, I find the game again, it's a lot of fun. I mean, there's a challenge to it. You know, the adventure, something about the slot machine effect in this game makes you want to come back and keep playing. And I could say that not many games really do that. I've played Path of Exile. I've tried. I can't get into it. I don't know why. It's too much going on, I think. Still prefer Diablo 3 because it's more streamlined. And after replaying this, the scene is very streamlined. It's not as unique as I remember. Still a lot of fun, don't get me wrong. But I play this game, and when I take my nostalgia goggles off and I play the game for what it is, I realize, you know what? It was a good game for its time. It did some things really right, and made what we consider Diablo experience. However, I still think Diablo 1 has a stronger gameplay. There's really no plus minus too much in this game. The plus minus, I think, is a really strong aspect to a game like this that they need to keep in future games, because the decision to get something at the cost of something, I think, is what really sells the Diablo franchise, because the end of the game is literally you beat the boss, but then the cost to beating the boss is to keep him trapped. You're supposed to, well, he decides to put the stone in his head. So victory followed by sacrifice. I think that they need to keep that. That's a feature that this game didn't really capture too much, and other games sometimes capture, and Diablo 3 does not capture at all. There's no sacrifice. Diablo 1 had it. It made it a stronger game for it. I had to really think of my itemization. Merchants are useless in this game. I'm not even going to talk too much about them, except that they're useless. Except for Geed, or the dude in Act 2 for gambling. And then it's just gambling. So you're no different than Wort, except you actually get to refresh the items each time. Useless. Merchants useless. They're a filler, and I think that games need to stop doing that. If you're going to put something in the game, make sure that it has a purpose. A lot of times now you have these games with these merchants. Even Diablo 3 is the same way. You make games of merchants, and they don't do anything. They're not, like, nothing you ever can get from them is worth getting. And for the level up phase, like this, I never went to a merchant and was like, oh my god, I really need this item, like I did in Diablo 1. So, that's my whole review. The only other thing I want to show you guys, so Diablo 1, I don't think had this feature. I didn't even think to check, and I forgot about the feature until I was like much farther into the game, and I thought, oh, I should check this out, but I wasn't going to change my playthrough, because I got to level 31 in one run, and I got to level 27 in one run, and I will tell you, with my Diablo 3 playthrough going on right now, I'm probably going to hit levels 60 or 70 before I even get to Act 5 at the way I'm going. And that's on normal mode. I did power level myself a little bit with the helmet, but leveling is very different in the new one. But there's this slash players. So if I switch slash players 8, oh, it didn't do it. Did it do it? No, it didn't. I thought it was, oh, maybe it's backslash players 8. No, slash players 8. Oh wait, maybe it's slash player 8. Well, oh, there it is. Okay, it's no space. Players set to 8. So now, 8 is the max amount of players you can have in a Diablo game. Now understand that by doing this, I have increased the difficulty 8 times. So this dude here is going to take forever to kill. Or not. It's supposed to be much harder. Players 8, and my leveling up would be much faster. So understand that this is one of the things for single player to kind of change up your experience, add challenge to yourself, helps you with farming because you get better items with harder difficulty. Oh, no. Now these guys are the ones that are upgraded. Yeah, you see how hard they are? So much more difficult. And that's because player's 8. And all my stuff died already. You can see. Oh, and lightning was like the worst modification ever in this game. Worst mod ever. So yeah, so that was probably the only other feature of this game. It's more so a single player feature for the purpose of trying to level up faster, increase challenge. I don't know what I would do if I was level 1 trying to play the player's 8, because it would be ridiculously hard. And there is a mild scaling, I believe, in this game for leveling. So, but there's not that much monster scaling. It's mostly with the player count than anything else. But that is my review. Ultimately, I would give Diablo 2 a 7 out of 10. Fun game. Has all the right things. Definitely some things that could have much been better improved on, which I think they did in future with adding new features and stuff. But I think ultimately it's a good game. I'd recommend trying out the series. We'll do the Diablo 3 playthrough review next time, but this has been your Let's Play review, episode 2 of Diablo 2.